My name's Isabel Cooper, and I'm here right now for Canadian Film Review, and I'm talking with Tonya Lee Williams. It's the wonderful Real World Film Festival, which you are a huge influence on the community, and you've done a lot to help filmmakers. Can you tell me a little bit about what's new this year for the coming Real World?
We have a lot coming up for next year. We're very excited. You know, normally the festival is 5 days in Toronto, but next year, 2014, we're expanding it to 8 days. 3 of those days are going to be in Markham, and we're really excited. I think the audience there is going to respond really well to the kind of Canadian films that we program and to some of the international ones. And Mayor Scarpitti of Markham there has been so supportive and is 100% behind this initiative, and we're excited about that.
That's wonderful. That's amazing. And I wanted to ask you also a little bit about the Indie Film Lounge. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, the Indie Film Lounge is an initiative that we started. I think this is our 13th year with it. And the real reason for starting that was during the Toronto International Film Festival. Not that we're part of TIFF at all, but there are so many wonderful activities going on, and you'll see a lot of organizations putting their own initiatives together. And we thought it was a great opportunity for emerging filmmakers in Canada to have access to some of the industry professionals. So we take time to prep them in August before the festival, how to pitch, how to present, how to market your project, and then we set up some meetings for them. So this has worked really well. No way could we have done this without the support of Telefilm Canada. They're really behind professional development, which I think is so necessary for a lot of emerging filmmakers. And with their support, we're able to put this on. And this year we have Kodak coming back again. So between the two really big sponsors, we're really excited, and it's going to be and we do that in September this year, the 9th to the 10th, but every year we put on Indie Film Lounge, and we look for filmmakers, all filmmakers, to go online to our website and submit to be a part of the Emerging 20s every year.
I know you've been traveling a lot, and I believe you've been in London. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it was good. I met a lot of filmmakers there, and there's a lot of diversity stuff going on in London, as there always has been, and just it was great to be in the mix of that.
How do you think Toronto and London compare in terms of diversity and inclusiveness?
I would say there's probably a little bit even more diversity in London, just in the general streets, although Toronto has a lot of it. But I think it's more on camera and behind the camera. I think there's a lot more diversity, and I think that's where we're heading in Canada, which is great. So England's been around for a long time, and their entertainment industry's always been a really strong industry, and so I think ours is sort of a newbie compared to them. But we have a co-production treaty with them, and it's a great opportunity for people of color here to connect with all those amazing people of color there. In fact, the agent that I'm with there was the first Black agent, so it's great to see all that. We don't have a lot of that when we're talking about casting directors and agents and sort of behind the scenes people. We don't have a lot of people of color in those positions yet, so we can learn a lot.
And as far as Toronto goes, I know when you started out your career, you had indicated in some of the other interviews, like when you started out Polka Dot Door and things like that, that there wasn't many people of color on TV, in our households. And then when The Cosby Show came out, it was huge, and it was a turning point. Do you feel, and I know you also mentioned that, some of the roles were very limited in the quality of the roles. Do you feel we've come a long way, or is it still not there yet?
It comes in waves. I think that's so interesting. It's funny that I had dinner with Clement Virgo last night, and he said he's so tired of people coming up and saying to him, "Oh, you had it so easy." And he and I laugh because I'm like, how did we have it easy? I mean, we were trying to break through. I mean, there were no Black directors in Canada. I mean, maybe there was one or two, but not to really speak of. There were certainly no Black actresses really in the public eye, in the mainstream to speak of. So we go, how can it not be easier for people now? There is just so much opportunity there. But, sometimes I look back at old Sidney Poitier movies, and I think they were further ahead with the kind of characters, the kind of black men characters that Sidney Poitier played. You don't even see those kind of characters now, so it feels we've slid back. So there are more physical people out there, but a lot of times they're still playing a lot of the stereotypical roles. They're gangsters and they're killers and they're crooks and even though you have wonderful actors like Denzel Washington, it's not till he took a movie like that crazy movie where he's the cop and he's corrupt and killing everyone that he wins the Oscar for. So they and a lot of the women that are winning the Oscars, it's whenever they're playing those, they're the maids and the housekeepers and they're still not really recognizing people of color who are doing mainstream roles. You get more attention, especially in Hollywood, when you do very stereotypical roles.
And do you think it's more so for the females?
I think it's equal. I feel sorry for the men because Blair Underwood and I have talked about this in Hollywood because he turns down a lot of stuff because it is all gangster stuff. It takes a lot. I mean, he was on a series recently where he played the president, so he had to really wait a long time before those kind of roles come up. But there's a lot of roles for the men where they have to be, drug pushers and gangsters or undercover cops always in the trenches, not very polished individuals. You don't see very Obama type characters yet, and I'd say the same with women.
Well, you're definitely a very positive influence on the film community and in Toronto and the Canadian film community, and so many people have so many wonderful things to say about you. You're welcome. And in terms of real world, I remember you once, I think in one of the interviews, you said, I don't necessarily focus on it getting bigger. I want it to be stronger. Do you have, sort of any ideal scenario of people coming into real world and how their careers might progress after sort of learning from the experience?
Yeah, on one hand, I think of real world as two things. I think of how is it affecting the filmmakers at large, and when I say stronger by that, I do mean that someone like a Richie Metter who came to us in 2002 and had a dream to be a director but never, and slowly built all his relationships from, sort of starting here, that makes us feel really good. And more of that would be absolutely great, and we're seeing more and more of that each year as it goes on. But a big part of real world for me is all the administrative stuff, the things people don't see, the office and the work that happens all year round. That's getting stronger, and for me that requires that there's not a staff coming and going, that it's not just interns and volunteers that are doing everything, that you hope one day there could be 6 or 7 core people, maybe one day to be 20, 30 core people, but right now 6 or 7 core people who I can pay a salary that they don't have to be thinking about getting another job, and I'm going to be losing them after training them for a year or two. So to me, that's also what I mean by stronger, that they're happy to be here because they're making a good salary and living a quality of life, and that then I can step back a bit. Because I live in Los Angeles, and it gets harder and harder for me to keep moving back and forth like this. So eventually, I don't want real world to fall down because I'm not around. I want it to still sustain itself, and that's now my preoccupation over the next few years. How can I build that team? How can we bring in the resources, the revenues, get more sponsorship that we need to get, so that I literally don't have to be here at all, and I'm comfortable because they understand the vision and the branding, and they're taking it, not my original vision, but they're taking it to the next, not 21st, but the 22nd century of how that's going to be useful for filmmakers going forward. That's what I mean by stronger. And sometimes people are only talking in days. Oh, make it 10 days, 20 days, but it doesn't really matter how many days you make it. Is it relevant? Still, is it still serving a purpose? And that's important to me.
Well, you're obviously very business-minded in terms of how you've arranged Real World, how you've grown it, and how you've made it so strong over the years. And obviously that's also a part of what you're trying to teach the young emerging filmmakers, how to understand, yes, it's great that you have this very artsy idea, but how do you make the business work? Do you think that that's something that Canadian filmmakers really need to work on? Especially
the emerging ones. I think a lot of the very professional filmmakers, producers, people in Canada, they certainly know it because they, like the Breakthroughs or the Shaftesbury, they have great business models. They're making product and they're expanding where this product gets sold and bought. In the States, I find that the emerging filmmakers are really business savvy. Right from the get-go, they already are figuring out, I'm investing $50,000 of my own money. How am I going to get $200,000 back from that? I found it very different with the emerging filmmakers in Canada. They seem to wonder why, but my story is really good, and my script is really good, and my this is really good without. And you ask simple questions like, well, who's your audience? They look at you like, well, everybody, and everybody can't be your audience, and like you have to really look at your script as to how are you going to get this sold? Like who's going to buy this? What distributor? Is it going to be a theatrical? Will it just really play well on television? Would this be better as a try to make this into a TV series? So everything is not going to be an epic Oscar movie. There's a place for everything, and I think someone sitting down, even thinking. Sometimes emerging filmmakers in the States will say, "I'm writing this for Angela Bassett. I'm writing this for." They have no. They don't even know how they get to Angela Bassett, but they're already thinking who that might be, and I think the same thing should happen here. Start making your wish list of actors, and be nice if they added some Canadians on that wish list, and start building towards it. When you're selling and pitching a project, it lands well on the person listening when you can start going, imagine Halle Berry, imagine somebody in it where they can start seeing how this story could play and who it could be played to. And I like the way a lot of the emerging, especially people of color in the States, have been adding music people. I mean, how, they were one of the first people to sort of start taking hip-hop artists or music people and bringing them into the movie business because they knew that audience was bigger and they could rely on that. So I like anyone that thinks outside of the box and has, a filmmaker last week came to me and his whole script was filled with product placement things, which I thought was fantastic because that was how he was going to. I did a movie last year called Cybergeddon that Anthony Zucker, who's the creator of CSI, did, and I love it. Anthony went to Yahoo, and then he went to Norton. I don't even know if he had the story yet, and had an idea about something that was completely wrapped around cyber terrorism, whatever. And they bought in and financed, an over $2 million project because it spoke to their needs, and even though it's a great story about espionage or whatever, at the end of the day, underlying it's about securing internet, online, all that, your stuff, which where Norton came in, and that the whole movie has an online base to it, which speaks to Yahoo. So I think filmmakers need to talk about that. I think I saw a movie just a couple of days ago on television called The Baby Sellers. Really great film, but it was all about the trafficking of babies for American parents who think these babies are coming from orphanages and abandoned, but really parents are being murdered and kids are being stolen from hospitals, and mothers giving birth have been told their babies were born dead when they're not. But when I was looking at the credits, I saw a lot of the financing came from a lot of foundations that speak to that subject matter. So to me, that's smart, and I'm excited when I see filmmakers thinking smart that way.
Well, this has been a wonderful chat, very informative, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, you're welcome.